everyone, and welcome to InsideSales.com's Army of Sales Rep online conference for sales ops and enablement professionals. I'm really excited to talk to you today about the science side of sales, and we're going to be going over an end-to-end process readiness framework. It sounds like a really fancy title, but it should give you a prescriptive way to align your processes and your tools and your scorecards and your KPIs so that you can show what you're doing or maybe show what you're going to be doing to help your company. So I'm currently the VP of Sales Operations and Productivity at MindBody, which is a business management platform for more than 60,000 fitness, beauty, and wellness companies across the globe. I wasn't there for the MindBody IPO, but I've been lucky enough to come out of some amazing VC-backed companies that are on that 10 to 100 million run rate. First was when I was at a small company called Iconiculture that was bought by CEB and then Gartner. Next, I was at lynda.com, started at about the 10 million range and brought that over the 100 million mark on the B2B side, which was bought by LinkedIn and then Microsoft. And most recently, I was at Alteryx, which is a data prep blending and analytics company that went public last March on the New York Stock Exchange. But it doesn't matter where I go. At each of these companies, pre-IPO or post-IPO, under 100 million, over 100 million, one goal really remains the same, and that is make the number. It's also make the number with rep productivity forecasted above or below 5%, but this was really the big one, is to make the number. But you don't always make the number. That's what's tough. There are massive growth targets, especially if you're VC backed. There's many reps to hire, and if you don't hire on time, you've got open quota. You can have product gaps with your enterprise readiness and more. So you try to diagnose the myth through data, and you also gather feedback. So you may hear things like, well, Hillary, we needed more leads or better leads. Got it. We'll try to get you more MQLs. Or we need more training or better training. Got it. We'll do a better job with the upfront enablement and the post-training certification. Or we need more tools or better tools. Got it. We'll make sure that we're mapping it, correctly to your sales process and doing that tools analysis after the fact. Or they'll say we need more process or better process. And no one ever says more process, but they do want better process. We want there to be, less friction for our customers and then also for our sales reps. And so, like any good kind of mildly passive-aggressive person working in California, I said in my head, well, I'll show you that we've got that all covered. We're doing all of those things. And I started to put together this matrix of kind of hashtag all the things that we were doing in sales ops beyond that go-to-market plan to help tell the story to our sales leaders, our C-suite, and our board that we really were co-piloting that sales strategy to help make the number. So this is a simple go-to-market framework that I put together, which goes over, 6 areas that you might want to think about as you're going to market and making some of those changes. We're really going to be focusing on the bottom 2, the process and the systems and how those relate to what's going on in maybe your sales environment and your organization. So the process readiness framework, the next couple of slides are really going to take you through a play-by-play. There's a final slide that has all the master information. So if you're looking to take some screenshots, you don't need to worry about that. I do deliver it kind of all at the end. But I started this process with really the selling motions of the company. And I'm at my 4th land, expand, retain company. And what's really been awesome over the past couple of years is that the prospecting portion or the sales development side of the business has really grown. It's become a very interesting and exciting discipline with a growing sophistication that should be called out. And so that was the first selling motion that I put in. Then we jumped to the land motion, right? That's being done by our inside sales teams. You want to land small, land fast. And then we add in that expand side. So this could be inside sales or outside sales and the handoff. It could be a cross-sell and upsell or both, but really getting to that big deal that you want to see, maybe that unlimited deal size. And then last, you want to retain. Of course, you want customer advocacy, but along the way, you want to make sure that any customers that you close, you're keeping. Then along the top, started to add in these different process pillars. So process is a really big word that captures a lot of things, but looking for the who, what, where, when of the sales motion. So anything that's related to a lead stage or a sales stage or an SLA or a handoff kind of generally fall here. Then we add in playbooks, which is really the sales ops way of saying follow our process. They operationalize the sales process and really keeps the sales team consistent. Next is certification. So we want to ensure that sales is following the playbooks that we rolled out and make sure that there's consistency in the messaging from our prospects to our clients. And this is great for anyone in marketing to also kind of help play a hand in as well. KPIs and scorecards. You know, these are tough. You need to manage a small enough set of KPIs and really measure them in that scorecard. And KPIs are those goalposts for success. So you want to have a mix of leading and lagging. Remember that those leading indicators are a lot harder to grab, but they're super important. And scorecards really help keep the ongoing visibility into that sales performance. And then last but not least is a tech stack to make sure that you can support the processes that you've designed with the playbooks, the certifications, the KPIs, and the scorecards. A company's tech stack and output of data and then the subsequent insights, you know, is really only as good as the sales planning and process put around it. So think of your tech stack as really a mirror of your process and design. And if those aren't very healthy, then your tech stack is going to reflect that. And that will show up in your data and your insights. So we actually talk about this a little bit in the revolution or evolution of sales operations, which is the circular relationship. And we joke about the top three, the strategy, the planning, and the insights really being the fun side. And that's where you're focusing on the business. But once you kind of get below that line and get into process systems and data, arguably where sales operations really was born, that is the fundamentals, and that's getting into the business. So what we're focusing a lot is kind of in the business stuff, but it does really drive our ability to be on the business as sales operations leaders and bring the right insights to the table to support the current strategies, drive new strategies, and get the right planning motions in place with sales coverage and territories and comp. So I don't want to jump too far into that. That could arguably be its own session. This is really back to the end-to-end process framework. So once you've got your selling motions on the left-hand side and your process pillars up on the top, it's important to understand your interlock departments because they are stakeholders in each of these. So where the prospecting process aligns, you might be working with demand gen or marketing ops or channel ops, whatever your top of funnel teams are that you'll be working with. Playbooks, frequently you're going to be arming with that sales enablement team or product marketing and so on down the line. These relationships are really important to make sure that your process framework can come to life because, again, every good strategy is a process that gives you those insights. And it's important that these teams are unified and aligned with you. Next, you'll want to find some key sales leaders as stakeholders to those. There's no good process that's rolled out where we haven't involved our friends in sales leadership. So this could be the head of your sales development. It could be your inside sales, your sales engineering, channel sales, your outside sales, customer success. There's a host of teams that may be involved as you start to put these together. So now we need to address kind of each box on the framework. And I'm not going to go through all of this chart in detail, but I am going to take a little bit of time to go through the top piece and give you a feel of what sits behind it. So in the first four under prospecting process, there's four pretty common ones. So lead acquisition, nurture, lead stages, and qualification criteria. So lead acquisition is a really interesting one of understanding what that right balance is of sales source leads and marketing source leads. Are you using the reverse of your ideal customer profile, your ICP, to ensure you're acquiring those quality leads up front? Where will you go and get them from? Will you use tools? Will you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, or will you use maybe Facebook if you've got that smaller kind of ICP? Who will cleanse and dedupe them? All of those are a process that needs to be done around lead acquisition to make sure that you're bringing in the right leads into your system. Once you have those right leads, what do you do with them? How are you going to nurture them? When does it start? Will sales also be doing some outreach on them? What happens if they move into a sales stage that should be turned off? Is all of that mapped out in the various systems that you have with your marketing automation as well? Lead stages. So it's pretty common for folks to follow a lead funnel like you do an opportunity funnel with easy to understand stages like 1, not contacted, 2, attempting contact, or 3, in conversation. But how will those really tie to marketing nurture? Will they turn them on or off? And what does that look like when you start to pop into an MQL? Last is qualification criteria. So this is typically, again, the reverse of your ideal customer profile. Common ones out there are BANT. But how will you measure that it's being used and adopted? How are you going to track and capture that information? upon lead creation and conversion? And will that actually flow through then to maybe a team who's doing the onboarding or the post-sale? Is that data still going to be accurate if maybe it's changed along the way with the person you're talking to? So if you've done any of these, you know how many kind of conversations, negotiations, definition meetings, and documentation has really taken place. So it looks like 4 little things, but that could arguably be at a size of company a couple months of work to really be getting done. So next we'll flip to playbooks. These have been wonderfully operationalized for us by companies like SalesLoft and Outreach, where the who to contact, when, and how, with what contact is really predetermined and served up. There's behemoth things in here like ABM. So this is just a big area to get right. Again, tied back to your nurture mapping. When are you reaching out? When are you not? First touch, final touch, all of those things are falling into the playbook with content, of course. Then there's certifications. Again, this is kind of the nice way of saying we want to test our reps to make sure they know what they're saying and what they're doing. So there are platforms out there just to track certifications. But here it's really just making sure, can they do an elevator pitch? You might do that at the end of a new hire training session where they have to share that to their manager or record a video. Same things for a basic demo. You might have them do that on a recorded PowerPoint that's uploaded. You might challenge them and say, you need to do this as a whiteboard exercise and you don't get to use any slides, but can you tell the story? So lots of ways to do certification. Next, you want to keep your KPIs limited. You want to make sure that you're accurately measuring them because it can get unwieldy fast. Everything is a data point anymore with the systems that we have. But can you charge towards maybe 3 to 5 that you're tracking repeatedly and consistently that ideally are mapping to that part of your sales process? So net new ads of lead acquisition, what's that lead response time? What are the conversion rates, maybe by lead source? And then what are actually being added as pipeline into your sales opportunities? And then last, add in those key tools really needed to accomplish this. There's no sense buying a tool just to have a new shiny tool. We know that that's easy and fun to do at times, but if it's not driving what the KPIs are for the business, that's really rooted in the strategy and the process, it's going to be tough to continue to buy those tools. So really step 10, and I know that sounds like a lot of steps, you're going to rinse and repeat across all of the remaining selling motions. So within land, you might start to see things like sales stages, right? There's mapping exercises here. There's entry criteria, exit criteria, probabilities. Do you tether the forecast category to a stage or do you not? These are all things that need discussion and definition and documentation to make sure that everyone is in alignment and understanding that, because again, it is going to drive those KPIs that you're taking a look at. Pipeline and forecasting, I mean, arguably one of the biggest things that sales ops needs to do, help drive pipeline and help drive accurate forecasting. So making sure that you understand pipeline ads when you actually create an opportunity, the coverage, the velocity, and the patterns, especially if you're changing your sales process and what those look like is really critical. Key handoffs is just another big process bucket from your, ADR, BDR, BDM, LDR, SDR, kind of pick a choice, to your land rep, to maybe a sales engineer, to onboarding or implementation, to your expand rep and maybe customer success. All of those handoffs need to have the right information being passed along the way, so you have that smooth customer journey. That's where something like a deal snapshot can come into place. It's maybe not a process per se, but it does capture the key information on a deal because it could be required to be sent out. Is that actually going to serve a purpose downstream, or is it just to give those shout outs maybe within the sales team? Those are important things to understand as you're looking to capture any of that information. Playbooks, again, operationalize the process that you have. So what are you actually doing for trial conversions? What's the right reach out for that? Is it a free trial? Is it a paid trial? For competitive, wins or takedowns, are you following the right steps that need to occur to make sure that you're taking those smaller, big competitors that maybe your company has? Certifications, again, they tend to get bigger here, that step up from the prospecting team of, can they actually do some really solid storytelling? Do they understand prior deal wins, and can they articulate that and get that story told to a prospect and win them over? Can they do objection handling that you wouldn't see necessarily on that prospecting level? And how good are they at that negotiation, the right kind of gives and gets that we need to see? The KPIs and scorecards around this, the common three are out there. It's the reverse engineering, close rate, average deal size, and sales cycle. Those are three that you can and should track. Trial conversions might be another one here. If you're heavy on the land side of the business or acquiring new customers, making sure you've got the right KPIs to track that. Those are lagging. What are your leading ones is going to be really important for that on the scorecard motion to raise those red flags if they're maybe not there. And then last, your tech stack to optimize that. Is gamification really important? Are you, maybe on that 10 million going up to 100 million and you want to have that super competitive environment where you're showing leaderboards? Gamification is great for that. Is your ideal customer someone who watches a lot of videos and maybe is on their mobile phone? That's a great way to bring in the video creation tools that are out there. CPQ, excellent if you've got a giant product book and you want to make sure that you've got an easy way to configure price and quote, get the right discounting approvals, and then quotes out to customers, another good leading indicator for some companies. Expand, a lot of the same characteristics of the lands. You're going to maybe see some different playbooks. How do you move from one department to multiple departments or one location to multiple locations? How do you really know which departments and locations to go after? Is there a good scoring model there? Is it a pilot that you're doing? Those are some great playbooks that you can really have. Other things that you might see pop up is what is the health score of the customer? What's your cross-sell and upsell percentage? Do you have a rep who's really good at selling more to the same person? Or do you have a rep who's really good at selling to new customers within a current customer that you have? Those are interesting KPIs to be taken a look at. And then again, some new pieces, maybe in the tech stack around ABM, which really helps on that customer and helps them grow to those areas that we want to see. Retain, again, a lot of the same ones as the pieces above. The playbooks are going to be different. Are you looking at securing early renewals? What happens when something is at risk? What about those really high potential customers, especially if you have retained folks or customer success managers that are carrying a quota? And what does it look like to lead a QBR? QBRs sound easy, but they can be really complex, and to get them right the first time for those big customers, especially as you have new folks coming into your organization. KPIs and scorecards, again, we kind of moved down with net retention, gross retention, how many QBRs were completed versus incomplete. Is that tying back to those retention numbers? And is it tying to health score? All those are very interesting metrics to really dive into. And then the tech stack, definitely want to see some analytics and insights, some customer management tools here, and of course, some email outreach with your customer lifecycle that you have. So a completed framework might look something like this. If we do the quick math, there's 4 items in each of these. There's 5 boxes, so 20 items times 4. There are 80 things that you might be doing as a sales ops and enablement leader at any given time to support your sales teams in making the number. And behind those 80 is, or more, is your work, your partnership with sales and your other interlock departments. You have a big job with big expectations, in sales ops or rev ops or biz ops, whatever we call it. And these might not all be filled out at a company or a time that you're at, but it does allow you the ability to tell your story to your sales leaders, your C-suite, and your board that you're co-piloting that sales strategy and helping make the number. Knowing what you need to do, knowing what you've done, and how you're going to get there is a really great way to tell that story. So that's the end of the presentation. I hope you were able to learn a couple things. If you have questions, our contact information is available, and you can feel free to reach out on LinkedIn. Again, my name is Headlee, and it was really a pleasure to get to talk to you today. Thanks so much.